All right, so what we're going to be having a look at in this video is a technique that has helped me to deploy my products much quicker, to get much more consistency with my design, and to make changes faster down the line when I'm trying to get a bubble app in market quicker. As we can see here, we've got a menu item that when we click on the menu item, there is some changes happening to the items that we're clicking on. There's changes happening to the page here. And all in all, it's a very simple, but a pretty clean and pretty neat menu that we've got here. Believe it or not, this menu is built on a single group. This is one group that is representative of all these menu items and a single item, just one item in our workflow editor. And so what this allows us to do is essentially build a menu that we can come back to and change by making changes to just a single item or a single part of our workflow editor. And so this group here, group menu item display, this is representative of every menu item that we've got here. And if we go across to our workflow editor, or if we click on edit workflow, this one step in the workflow editor is representative of all of these changes that we're seeing, the changes that we're seeing to the text, to the icon, to the background color, and to the page here, all happens because of one item or one step in our workflow editor. So in this video, I'll show you how I use this technique, why I use this technique. And it's I go pretty slowly in this video to sort of take you through it properly. But once you start using this technique across the different menus in your apps, or a lot of menus in your apps, you'll find that your speed of development, your consistency with design, and your ability to make changes down the line is significantly better than it ever was before. All right, so to get started, we're going to add a new page to work from. So we select the page, drop down up the top here, select add a new page, and then I'm just going to call this one menu example. We'll click create. We don't want to clone an existing page. We want a fresh new page. And from there, we're going to make some changes to the actual page itself. So we select the page in the elements tree. Make sure you go across to the layout tab. Select the container layout to the column. This is essentially saying that we want our items stacked one on top of the other on the page as we add them, just as a default structure for the page. And then we'll change the default builder width to 1400. This is just a preference. You don't really have to do 1400. Sometimes I do 1200 depending on the app, but I prefer 1400. All right, so we've got our page structure set up. What we're going to do now is go into search for our assets. We type in group, select the group, and then we'll drop that onto the page. We're going to call this group page. This is just going to give us a page to build from, or a group to build from on our page. Select fit height to content. That's just going to stretch the group out onto the rest of the page. And once we've done that, we can now we're actually going to add a margin to this element. Just getting in my own way a bit here. We're going to add a margin to this element. So just to show you what I'm going to do here, click on the layer in the elements tree, go down to margins. This is on the layout tab. And we're going to add in a margin of, let's do 180 on the left. And what this does is it gives us a bit of space to work with here, where we're going to drop in a floating group, and that's going to be where we put our menu. So we type in floating group, or type in floating in the asset search box, select floating group, drop it anywhere on the page, and we can now start to format this so that it sits next to the group page that we just created. And a lot of people do this just while I'm sort of teaching. I might do this just to sort of help give you a bit of an idea of where this is sitting on the page. Select appearance, go down to background style, make sure that flat color is selected for background style, and then select background color and just select any color that you've got in your color variables that isn't white. And that's just going to give us an idea of what we're working with here. So we can rename this floating group. We just select up the top here to floating group menu. If at any time you lose this or it goes away, just select the element in the elements tree again. So we're actually working with floating group menu though. So we select floating group menu. Under the layout tab, we're going to set the width to the same as the left margin we set before. So I think it was 180. I'll just double check that. Yep. So when we click on group page, we set a left margin of 180. We come back to the floating group menu and we've set a fixed width of 180. So this is essentially saying that in this section of the page here, We want the floating group menu to sit there. And then on the rest of the page, we're just going to use this group page, the group that we set up earlier. Now we want the floating group menu to go from top to bottom. So we're going to select fit height to content. That's going to stretch it out for us. And now we can put in some padding just on the inside of this group, this floating group, just to sort of give us, so we're not going side to side, or so we're not putting in elements that are sitting right up on the border. So I'm going to put in 12 top, left, in the top, in the bottom, the left and the right. We'll put 12 all around. We can see there's a little invisible border now inside. Gives us a bit of padding to work with. All right, so we've set up a very basic menu and page. Now what we're going to do is set up the options set for this menu. And this is where it gets interesting and is a little bit different to what a lot of people are doing when they build menus and the menus that I've seen in people's apps. So we go across to data, go into option sets. If you haven't set up an option set before, just click skip tutorial. And we're going to call this that, let's just call it menu. Throughout my apps, whenever I'm using the repeating groups, like across the whole app, I do like to name them something that is relative to where we're working from. So we could call this example page menu. Click create. That's going to create an options set that we can now work with. And what we're going to do next is put in the different items that we want in our menu. So the first item might be dashboard. The second item might be people. The third item might be financials. And then we'll also add in, let's say, data. Then we'll say business. I'm just putting in some random areas here. This is different areas that you're going to allow people to navigate to. It doesn't really matter what you put here. And we'll finish with settings. So these are essentially the different menu items that we're going to have that are sitting in our menu. We're putting them into an option set, basically to sort of pre-format what we want in the menu. This means that we don't have to go in and build these out as separate sections in our menu. And what I'm also going to do while I'm here is create a new attribute, and we're going to call this URL. So this is where it gets interesting. And this is actually probably the best part of this technique that I've found. This is going to allow us to navigate through these different pages or through these different menu items that we've just created by sending the menu item to our URL. So we select, I'll just do that again. We select create a new attribute, put in the attribute name as URL, and then the type is text. Click create. And now what we've got to do is go through and modify each of these option sets that we just created. So for dashboard, we click modify. In URL, we put dashboard, make sure it's all lowercase, and then we save that. We do the same for people, again, all lowercase, and save it. Same for financials, data, business, and settings. So just go through in the items that you've created for your menu items and then add in a lowercase version of that same word. If you're using any sort of menu items that have two words in them, so let's say one of them was my profile, what I would do is I would put my and then dash profile, or you could just put my profile, all one word. It doesn't really matter. I'll get rid of that one though. All right, so we've created the items that we want in our menu. We've added a URL parameter for them that's sort of specific to each of those items. We're going to head back to the design tab now, and we're going to select to add in our first group, which is going to hold all of the menu items in the repeating group that we want. So we type in group in the search asset box, select a group, click anywhere in the floating group to drop it in, and then we're going to call this group menu items. Head across to layout, select fit height to content. That's going to stretch it out the whole way. And from there, we're going to now type in the search asset box. We're going to type in repeating group or just repeating. Select repeating group. Select in the group menu items that we just created. That should drop the repeating group straight in there. And now we're going to call this repeating group menu. All right, so essentially what we've done is we've got group page set up. That's our main page that the general items like the actual dashboard screen, the financial screen, all the information that we want, that's where they're going to sit. And then in the floating group menu, this is going to display our menu. we've got a group to sort of hold all of the repeating group that we've got. You don't actually have to create group menu items here, but I like to do it that way. It's just a better structure. And then we've got repeating group menu, which is going to actually hold all of our individual menu items. So make sure you've clicked back again on repeating group menu, select, deselect or unselect fit width to content. That's going to stretch the repeating group out. And then deselect fit height to content as well. We can get rid of the minimum height here and the minimum width. So they should just be 0. And now what we can do is add in another group, or add in what we want our menu items to actually look like within this repeating group. So we search for group, select the group, drop it in. I'm going to call this menu item display. All right, so now I might just, if we click on repeating group menu, we're just going to change the color of this as well. So click on repeating group menu, click on appearance, scroll down to background style, and then we'll just leave it as flat color. And again, this is just to help people to see what they're working with. Once you're very used to this on Bubble, you don't really need to do this, but it does help while you're learning to see the different elements that you've got here. Now that we've clicked on repeating group menu, let's scroll back up to the top on the appearance tab, and under type of content, we're going to search for the option set that we just created, which is example page menu. So I select example page menu, and I want the data source to be all example page menu. So just going through that again, on this repeating group we've created, type of content is example page menu, and the data source is all example page menu. It should be one of the first options sitting there for you. We're going to get rid of the fixed number of rows, so just untick that. And then the minimum height of the row, we're going to change that to 40. All right, so now if we click across to group menu item display, select type of content, select example page menu. Again, we can type that in if we want. If we've got more items in our database or our option sets that we need to work through, just type in menu, select example page menu. That's the one that we created. And then under data source, select data source, and then select current cells example page menu. So you can type in current if you want, then select current cells example page menu. Click away from that so it saves. We've got it there. And now what we've done is essentially we've set up a repeating group to show all of the example page menu items that we've created. And now each of these individual items are going to show one in order. They're going to show one of the items or each one of the items that we created. So if we go back to our database under option sets, they're going to, in the repeating group, it's going to show dashboard, then it's going to show people, then financials, then data, then business and settings. Well, it's going to pull that data across, but now we actually need to build in a way for the text to be displayed. So under search assets, type in text, select text, drop it in to group menu item display. Just drop it into the first item. If you feel like you've dropped it somewhere else, so let's say you accidentally drop it above the repeating group, what you can do is select it, drag it down, and just make sure it sort of sits within, there's like a line that will come up under group menu item display. Make sure it sits within there, and it should look like this once you've done it. All right, so we click on text A. Now select the sort of text value that's coming up in the text box here, insert dynamic data, and then we're going to click parent groups example page menus display. Now you're going to get all of this text coming up. What we want to do with this is type in just a canvas placeholder. So type in dashboard. That's just going to show us what it looks like when those actual items are being pulled across. And from there, what we can do is start to sort of resize and reformat how the text is displayed within this group. So go back and select group menu item display. So just click on group menu item display, click on layout, and then in container alignment, just click centered. And that's going to drop it down into the middle for us. And then from there, what we can also do is we can scroll down to the bottom in group menu item display, and we're going to put some padding in, just put in 8 in all of the values. And this is just so it's not sitting right up against the side of the repeating group or the group that we've got the text in. It sort of separates it a little bit. All right, so click on the text once again, click appearance, and then we're going to just drop this font down. I like to have a much smaller menu item font. So I like something around 12. It depends on the font that you're using. and then change the font color to something much lighter as well. So I haven't got any preset variables that I want to use with my colors here, but I'm just going to go down and put something in that looks a bit like this. So 909090. Click away after you've done that, and then just change the font weight to, let's try medium. Yeah, it's not too bad. Awesome. All right, so now we're going to put an icon in this group as well. So go into the search asset box, type in icon, select icon. You can drop it anywhere within group menu item display. It should be coming up exactly as we've got here. What you want to do, just to allow us to start formatting this correctly, is select group menu item display. I'm just going to drag this down so I can see everything in here. Select layout, and then select the container alignment to be row. So what this is going to do is it's going to, instead of stacking our items on top of each other, it's going to put them side by side. And now what we can do is we can select the icon that we've put in there, select previous. That's going to put it at the front, or put it before the text for us in this individual group. And if we select the text item, we can now center this as well. So select the text item, select layout, vertical alignment as center. That's going to drop it down, and these two are now in line. Preferably, you don't want them sitting right up against each other as we've got here. So if we select group menu item display and then apply gap spacing between elements, what we can do is we can put a bit of a gap between the two of them. So I would put a column gap here anywhere from 2 to 4. We'll try 4 in this example. We can see there's a bit more space here, which is good. And from there, we can now start to use conditional expressions to actually customize what this icon is. So what we're going to do is we go across, we don't even need to change this icon here. We go across to, we just have to click on the icon, go across to conditional expressions. So click the conditionals tab, click define another condition, and say get data. Sorry, I've just got to move this here. All right, so what we're going to do here, the video just cut out a bit there. What we're going to do here is essentially set up an icon color that is going to tell us when this particular menu item, whichever one it is on the list, has been selected. We're going to set up a parameter using get data from URL to show us that this icon is the one that's been selected. So what we do is we type in get data, as I said before, select get data from page URL. We're going to put in the letter N in parameter name, select close, and then say is parent group's example page menu, and then URL. What this is essentially saying is that when parent group's example menu URL, so when the URL parameter that we're going to set is dashboard, we want this to change in a certain way. And in this example, we're going to select a property to change when true, and we're going to say icon color. So we can now change this icon color. I'm going to change it to be fully white. So just make sure it's FFFFF, 6 Fs. And essentially what that's going to do, if we click on, it's going to make it completely white when this item is selected. And just keep going with me here because it'll all start to make sense at the end. We're going to copy this. We're going to select the text. So just right click on it, select copy condition. Make sure you don't right click on in the box where we're doing copy expression. We right click in the gray area, copy condition, select the text, and then in define another condition under the conditional tab, define another condition, right click, and then paste condition. So same again, what we're going to do is we're going to say select a property to change when true, type in font, select font color, and then change this just to all white. One more thing we're going to do to these two is we're going to say under appearance, if you scroll down to the bottom, so click appearance right to the bottom, under select a property to define it, select a property to define a new transition. I'll just slow down a bit, type in font, select font color, and then duration as 500 milliseconds. What this is going to do is it's going to mean that when we, down the line, when we build in a way to, when the user selects this menu item and then it shows that it's selected, it's just going to slowly fade in that color change a little slower than it would normally, so that it's not a really abrupt and really, abrupt is probably the best word. So it's not a very abrupt change of font color. And we can do the same for the icon. So we select the icon, scroll to the bottom, select a property to define a new transition, type in color, select icon color, and then we'll do 500. And it's just a small little addition to what we're doing here, but it does actually add a nice touch to it. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set a way for group page to actually basically display each of these individual menu items corresponding pages. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna set some padding up in group page. So just click on group page, select layout, under padding, put in 32 to each of the top, right, bottom, left, and right. Put in 32 padding, and then I'm just going to do a very, very rough way to sort of display that we're moving between the pages. But what we do under search assets is we type in text, select the text element, and then drop it anywhere within group page. Now we're going to make this a little bit bigger just so we can see this, or so it's very clear to us. So select the font size for the text that we just dropped in, change that to 24, change the weight to 700, and we're just going to make this all black. Awesome. So now under the text edit section, what we can do is we're going to do insert dynamic data, and we're going to type in get data from page URL. The parameter name is going to be n. We're going to close that. And what that's going to do is that when once we add in the workflow, when a certain menu item is selected, this is automatically going to display the display for that menu item that we've set up. The only thing that we want to make sure we do here is we'll just select that text again, select more at the end of it, and then select capitalized words. This is just a very shortcutted way of doing this. There's a lot more you can do with it, but I just want to sort of use this as an example to show that we're able to navigate between the menu items, and we're able to then pull data from the URL to sort of display what menu item we have recently clicked on, and we have accessed, or we are looking at. And you can do the exact same with visibility for groups as well, but that's, I guess, another sort of setup or discussion. This is just to get the menu items right and then show some corresponding changes to information on the page. So we'll click on the text again. Under canvas placeholder, just type in dashboard. That's just to make it look a little bit neater. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add in and by the way, the UX is going to look very different at the end of this, so just work with me here. We're going to add in a way to essentially click on this menu item and then display the data on the page, or have a corresponding change to the data and the information that's displayed and is visible on the page. And the way that we do that is we select group menu item display, click add workflow, and this is where this becomes a really, really cool way to use the option sets and the repeating groups. Because typically when we're creating a menu, and what I see a lot of people doing is if you have 10, let's say 8 to 10 menu items, you have 8 menu items here, you would have to create a workflow for every single menu item that you've got sitting in that menu. But with this approach, with the repeating group, we create one. And it means that if we make changes down the line, or if we want to make changes to what those menu items are, we make one change. We make a change to the option set, or we make a change to the single workflow. And so if we click edit workflow, this is the old workflow editor. I just thought it'd be better to use this because some people may not be using the new one. Under the workflow that we've just created, click here to add an action. And then we're going to type in go to, select go to page, destination is going to be menu example. It's essentially destination is the page that we're working from. Data to send, just add in, if you've got an existing page and the data is, let's say, current pages company or current pages user, make sure you put that in. We haven't set any data to send for this page, so we can leave that blank. So put in the destination as the page we're working from, click send more, or select send more parameters to page, click add another parameter, put in the key as n, and then under the dynamic value, we just select the value that says click to current sales example pages URL, pages menu URL. So I'll just do that again. I'll clear that out. Click on the dynamic data that we can add in, insert dynamic data, select current sales example page menu. So you can type in example page. It's the same as we did in the repeating group, but current sales example page menus URL. And what we're saying here is essentially when I select a menu item, whether it be dashboard or any of these other menu items, what I want the system to do is send the URL that we set for each of these menu items, that lowercase value for each of these menu items that we set, send that as a URL parameter. And then we can now use that information that's in the URL to change the content that we have, to change the visibility of the content that's on the screen, to sort of move through different items. In this case, we're displaying a different piece of text on the screen. So I'll just go over that again. So we select group menu item display. That's just the first menu item in the repeating group. Under appearance, select edit workflow. In the workflow, we do go to page. So we type in go to page. We say we're going to the page that we've created. Select send more parameters to page, put in N as the key or whatever key you set up before. And then in the dynamic data, we select current cells, example page menus, URL. All right, so what we're gonna do now is just create a bit of a gap between these menu items. So select group menu item display, select layout. Just gonna move myself across here. Scroll down to the bottom and put a margin of 4. And this is just going to push down a bit of space between these menu items. What we can now do is really, in my opinion, the only tedious part of this process. But essentially, we're going to select an individual icon for each of these menu items. So what we select is, and this is something you have to do regardless, you always have to map an icon to a menu item if you're going to do it this way or the other way. But this is a much quicker way to do it because you're changing icons in one place. So we select the icon that we've added to the first repeating group or first cell in the repeating group, select conditional, and then define another condition. So what we're going to say here is we click on this button here, we click the text that says click and say parent groups, we're saying when parent groups example page menu is dashboard, click away from that. So we're saying when this cell is dashboard or when the group that we're working with is dashboard, select a property change when true, select icon, and then find the icon that you want to correspond with this menu item. So in this case, we've selected dashboard. So I'm going to type in home and I select an icon for home. We can turn that on to test what it looks like. That's essentially saying when this menu item that we're working with here is dashboard, I want this icon. Now we click copy. So right click on the gray area, copy condition. You can right click on define another condition and paste condition. And in this second one that we've created where it says parent group's example page menu is dashboard, select dashboard, then select the next menu item that we've created. So in this example, it's people. Select the icon box and we're going to type in people. Select an icon that corresponds with this menu item. In this example, it's people. We can see that that's what it's going to look like when the menu item is people. And right click copy condition, paste condition again. And we're now just going to go through each of these menu items. We go into financials, click away. We're going to add a corresponding icon for each of these menu items. And again, this is the only part that is somewhat tedious, but once you've done this, we're almost done. So right click on copy condition, paste condition, change financials to data. I'll throw in just a bit of a chart there. Copy condition again, paste condition, business. Let's just type in any sort of item at all. Copy condition, paste condition, and then we're done. Settings, and now just select an icon for settings, put that in. All right, now it's time to get into the design work for this to make it look really nice. So what we're going to do here is, first of all, we're going to click on repeating group menu. So click on repeating group menu, click on layout, and then click fit height to content. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually change the background color of floating group. So select floating group menu. We're going to change it to, let's do a dark color. So floating group menu appearance, under flat color. I'm just going to pull that up a bit. Make sure background style is selected to a flat color. And we're going to do all black. Awesome. Now we can select the, let's select the repeating group again. So click on repeating group menu. Just make sure that there's no separator showing. So change the separator style to none. Scrolling down on repeating group menu under appearance, we're also going to get rid of the border. So select no border. And now we can click on group menu item display to actually start designing this individual menu item. So what we're going to do for this is we're going to say we want the roundness on the corners to be 10. So that's going to give it a little bit. Oh, sorry. One thing I do want to change, just click back to repeating group menu again, and then get rid of the background style. So just do the background style as none. Now we're back on group menu item display. So click on group menu item display again. The roundness should be 10. And we're going to leave the background style as none for now. But what we can do is under selected property to find a new transition, type in background, select background style, and put in 500. All right, now when we click up into the top right-hand corner, so this is again still on group menu item display, select define another condition and say, click on the button click, say when get data from page URL, the parameter is n. We're going to close this and then click is current cells example page menus URL. Click away from that. What we're saying is when the URL parameter that we've set matches this cell's URL parameter, select a property to change when true, type in background style, we're going to do flat color, type in background again, put in black background color, and we're going to set this to a very sort of light grayish color. So we'll select the background color of, let's say, B8, 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 and then put in 10% opacity. Click on off. We can see what that looks like. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, just a quick change to make that. One thing we want to do, we might make this a little bit, the opacity, we'll just make it 15% so we can see it. And now if you click away or just click on the group page, we can see there is a very light sort of coloring around our menu item there that's been selected. Click on it again, we might actually make that a bit darker. So we just click group menu item display again, under conditional background color. Let's make this 25. Yeah, and that should give us a better indication that this menu item's been selected. So essentially what we're saying is that we can turn it on and off here. We're saying is that when this menu item isn't selected, it looks like this. When it is selected, there's just a light coloring around the background. But what we've also done is we have, if we click on the text, we've also added a change to the text color when it's when the URL parameter matches the URL parameter for this menu item. So if I click on, we're also going to get a more lighter colored text in white. I'll click on that text again. I'm going to copy this conditional expression. So just click on the text, conditional, right click, copy condition. And now, actually, we should already have that on. If we click on the icon and then click on, it's going to show us what that menu item looks like when it's been selected. All right, so the last thing that we want to do is just click back onto this icon and change the default color for this. So under conditional, click off on that conditional expression that we were just seeing what it looks like there. Click appearance and change the icon color to, let's do it a light gray or any sort of gray, A7, A7, A7. And that's what it's going to look like when it's not selected. So now click back on dashboard. Let's just deselect all of these conditional expressions to sort of take it to its default state. Click on group menu item display and turn that off as well. That's what it's going to look like, our menu items when they're not selected. And then when we select them, it's going to be white. There's going to be a slightly colored background. And then this is going to change to white as well. Now, one more thing you might want to do is just select group menu items, layout, and fit height to content. That's going to sort of condense it in a little bit. And then we're also going to add a top margin above here. You can put lots of items above here as well, but just in this example, I'm going to put a top margin of, let's say 32. Now we'll make that a little bit more. Let's say 76. Yep, that's better. So this is where our menu starts. We put the top margin in. That sort of just gives us a bit of a buffer space from the top. And the last thing that we're going to do here, actually, I might just leave it at that and preview that. So if we click preview, we'll get rid of the debug mode here. So just backspace that just so we're looking at only the URL. And what we can now do is if we click on these items, we can see n equals dashboard comes up the top. and it's basically moving us through each of these items in our menu. But what is so cool about this is, as I'm sure you guys would recognize, we have created, in essence, one menu item. We've created one menu item. We've had to map out a few different icons to that menu item, but we've created one menu item that we can now leverage when we want to make changes that'll just create blanket changes to all the other menu items. So let's say that I wanted to change the text. If we go back to the preview mode, we can see that when we click a menu item, the text goes from a very light sort of gray color into white. Let's say for whatever reason we wanted to change, in this example, the text color to purple when the item is selected. Instead of us going through and having to amend every single menu item's conditional expressions, all we need to do is click on that piece of text, click on font color, change the font color, and now when I go back and we update that page in the preview section, any of the menu items I click on, it's going to automatically update and show that color is purple when they're selected. So you're creating a blanket approach to manage all of the items that you create by using this, this repeating group. And what we can also do is we can go back into our data, and under option sets and example page menu, we can very easily change these menu items now. So if dashboard now becomes home, when I go back and refresh this page, dashboard is now home. I click on home. I didn't change the URL parameter, so we'll go back and do that. So we click on modify attributes for home. We'll change the URL to home and save that. But when I now go back and update this page again, it's now saying home for me. For me, structurally, and in terms of speed of development, in terms of organizing my builds, in terms of, I guess, clarity with the workflows and the number of workflows I have, we have built a menu that changes and then has changes reflected on the page with one single item in our workflow editor. So good for sort of being able to manage, your workflow, the workflows that you're creating. And we've created it essentially with a single menu item as well that we can just go in and tweak and change when we need. So for me, this is the way to create menus, especially when you're trying to get an MVP done or something done quickly. The speed at which you can sort of implement things, make changes, update things, the incredibly neat way this allows you to sort of have your database, your app set up is just, for me, the only way to create menus on a dashboard. Thanks for watching.